Thank you, Caitlin. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar presentation. My name is Ty Ortman. I'm the president of the American School Health Association. Thank you for being here. For those of you who maybe are just starting or who are attending their first ASHA webinar, or maybe you're not a member of ASHA, we want to take just a couple of seconds here at the beginning of our presentation to tell you a little bit about our organization. The American School Health Association is a national professional association dedicated to developing the skills and abilities of school health professionals. Our mission is to transform all schools into places where every student learns and thrives. And we do that by envisioning an America and a world where healthy students who learn and achieve in a safe, healthy environment, nurtured by caring adults, functioning within coordinated school and community support systems. We are a multidisciplinary organization, inclusive of health educators, school nurses, and school health coordinators, and a variety of other folks. There are a number of benefits of joining and being a member of the American School Health Association. Chief among those is the Journal of School Health. Our premier publication comes out monthly with cutting-edge research and information about school health. Access to the latest school health information through our annual conference and biweekly newsletters and our networking communities. We have a very active social media presence, so if you're not following us on social media, I encourage you to do that. A variety of continuing education opportunities, such as members receiving free continuing education credits, as well as credits that are available for purchase for non-members. We'll be talking a little bit more about that later in today's presentation, because this is one of those examples of continuing education that we make available. We have a really exciting ASHA Career Center on our website. Opportunity if you're in the market for a school health related profession or a job. Several job postings and a variety of job postings listed on our website. And our newest member benefit is a relationship with the American Academy of Pediatrics, a 15% discount on all AAP publications. And I know folks who work in schools often rely on the references and citations that we see in a lot of AAP publications. So that's a really great benefit that's available for everyone. So encourage you to take a look at that. If you're not a member of ASHA, join us and receive those benefits. Our premier event each year is the annual conference. This year's annual conference is October 2 through 4 at the Hyatt Regency in Cincinnati, Ohio. So hope to see you there. Registration will be opening in just a few weeks. So with that, again, appreciate your time today and look forward to sharing some information with you. Today's speaker, excited to introduce Dr. Stephen A. Fine. Just to tell you a little about Dr. Fine, shortly after his son died, her son Dan died of melanoma in 1998 at the age of 26. Steve Fine founded the nonprofit Melanoma Education Foundation, and since August of 2001, he has devoted his full time to the foundation. The primary mission of the foundation is to educate high school and middle school students, wellness teachers, about melanoma, and to provide them with free online resources to educate their students in a single class session. Working as an executive producer with 2 Emerson Health Communication Department graduate students, he co-produced videos for high school and middle school students that won the Gold Triangle Awards from the American Academy of Dermatology. He also produced a teacher training video that received the Gold Triangle Award. At last count, the Melanoma Education Foundation lessons were being utilized in over 1,700 schools in all 50 states. In addition to that, the Melanoma Education Foundation has received several additional awards, such as a New England Patriots Maya Craft Community MVP Award in 2013, inclusion in the Massachusetts General Hospital 100, the Peabody Area Chamber of Commerce Community Spirit Award, and the Boston Celtics Hero Among Us Award. So we're very excited by that information and happily welcome Dr. Stephen A. Fine. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Okay, thank you very much, Ty.
And this is Caitlin. I just want to add too that if anyone has any questions, feel free to type it in the chat box.
Okay, well, welcome everyone, and thank you for attending this webinar. And the webinar consists of two parts. First, a teacher education video, that's about 30 minutes, and then we'll have time for some questions, and then a student video, which is about 16 minutes. And the student video format is completely different from the teacher video. Teacher video was based on a narrated PowerPoint presentation, which was converted into a video. So without any further ado, I'd like to play that teacher video for you. This video is intended for high school and middle school health and physical education teachers, nursing and allied health instructors, and instructors in health-related professions. There are separate, shorter online videos for students. The objectives are to update your knowledge of melanoma, enable you to present a short lesson to students, and enable you to answer student questions. The video starts with photos of young people who died of melanoma, then a brief comparison of common skin cancers, focusing on melanoma because it's the one most likely to affect young people, and it's also the deadliest of the skin cancers. Then we'll discuss ultraviolet radiation, which is believed to cause about 70% of melanomas and nearly 100% of other skin cancers. The next part of the presentation explores why students and the general public don't know about melanoma, and we'll finish by summarizing the melanoma lesson and how you can access it. These are photos of our loved ones. What happened to them can happen to your students or loved ones. Wonderful young people who died of melanoma in their teens and 20s and 30s when they should have been in the primes of their lives. The worst tragedy is that they didn't have to die. Most of them would be here today if they had learned about melanoma and how to find it by self-examination and how curable it is when found early. This video for wellness educators is about understanding how melanoma develops and becomes fatal, how to find it while it's curable, and how to present an effective single-class lesson on melanoma to your students. If they aren't educated about melanoma before they graduate from high school, they aren't likely to learn about it later. You can prevent this tragedy from happening. After watching the video, you can access a free online student video and other free online resources needed to present the lesson to your students. There are three common skin cancers: basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. The two carcinomas usually don't affect people under age 40. They're usually not fatal, and they occur mostly on chronically sun-exposed areas of the skin. They're common throughout the U.S., but most prevalent in the Sunbelt states. Melanoma can strike at a much younger age, is usually fatal unless found early, and can occur on any area of the skin, even unexposed areas. Unlike the two carcinomas, there are many northern states in which melanoma is actually more prevalent than in Sunbelt states. Basal cell carcinoma is the most common skin cancer and usually looks like a waxy raised pink or flesh-colored nodule, often cratered as in the left photo. It grows slowly and it's almost never fatal, but it may grow more beneath the skin than above the skin, so it's best to deal with it sooner rather than waiting. Squamous cell carcinoma is more serious, and usually it appears as a raised red patch that is dry, scaly, and bleeds or scabs. It develops from a precursor lesion called actinic keratosis that has a similar appearance but without a scab or bleeding. There are several effective treatment options for actinic keratosis and early-stage squamous cell cancer, but if left untreated, it may penetrate muscle walls and spread to an internal organ, becoming much more serious. Usually this type of tumor grows at a slow to moderate rate, but tends to grow more rapidly when it's located on the lips. Now we turn to melanoma. The number of new U.S. melanoma cases is more than triple the number of new HIV cases. Nearly all high school students know about HIV and AIDS before they graduate, but most don't know about melanoma, in spite of it being much more prevalent, far deadlier, and that they are vulnerable to it as teens. On average, someone dies of melanoma in the U.S. every hour. 25% of new melanoma patients are under age 40. Between the ages of 25 and 29, it is the most prevalent of all cancers and second only to breast cancer in females under age 39. And the incidence is increasing faster than that of any other cancer. Some more bad news. Vulnerability to melanoma increases throughout life. It doesn't peak like some of the childhood cancers. It can strike regardless of physical condition, health, or complexion. Only 10% of new melanoma patients have a family history of the disease. There are usually no symptoms except visual appearance until it's too late. And once it spreads to internal organs, it's almost always fatal. With all those dire characteristics, there are two big redeeming features. It's the easiest of all cancers to self-detect at an early stage, and it's all but guaranteed to be curable when found early. Cure consists of going to a dermatologist's office, getting a local anesthetic, having the melanoma removed, and 10 or 15 minutes later, you're cured without the need for any chemo or radiation. But the key is you must find it early. There are two kinds of risk factors for melanoma: inherited risks that you can't do anything about, and controllable risks. Among inherited risk factors are having 50 or more normal moles, any large or irregular shaped moles, even one, light complexion, red or blonde hair, light color eyes, and a family or personal history of any kind of skin cancer. Among controllable risks are three that stand out: having blistering sunburns under the age of 20. One blistering sunburn doubles your lifetime risk. 3 or more increases your risk 5 times. Intermittent exposure of normally covered skin to strong sunlight is a high risk factor and is believed to be the reason why U.S. melanoma incidence is higher in most northern states than in many Sunbelt states. The worst thing you can do to give yourself melanoma is to use tanning beds regularly. More about that later. The average lifetime risk of developing melanoma is about 1 in 44 in the white population, 1 in 250 among Hispanics and Latinos, 1 in 300 for Native Americans, 1 in 800 among Asians, and 1 in 1100 in the black population. But anyone can get melanoma regardless of skin color. Bob Marley, the reggae singer, died of melanoma at age 36. It started on a large toe and eventually spread to his brain. More recently, Dr. Maturi, a cancer surgeon at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, died from a melanoma that began on her scalp and was hidden by her hair until it was too late. About 30% of melanomas develop from pre-existing moles. There are two types of mole, normal and atypical. Normal moles have sharp borders with the surrounding skin, uniform coloration, and are less than 1/4 of an inch in diameter. Atypical moles usually have at least one different visual characteristic than normal moles. Fuzzy borders, irregular shapes, 2 or more shades, or large sizes are indicators that a mole may be atypical. In these photos, the moles on the left are flat, the ones on the right are raised, and that has no bearing on whether a mole is normal or atypical. Atypical raised moles, like the one on the bottom right, often have a fried egg appearance, with a raised yolk surrounded by a flat, fuzzy area. Some more information about moles. The chance of a normal mole becoming cancerous is small, less than 1 in 3,000. The chance is higher in an atypical mole, 1 in 100. A flat or slightly raised mole is more likely to become cancerous than a fully raised mole that you've had for many years. Melanoma can develop from moles that you've had for a long time, even since childhood, and moles with hair are no more likely to become cancerous than moles without hair. The primary early warning sign of melanoma is a change in a mole or other skin growth, as you see in the simulated progression of an atypical mole into a melanoma. The most common changes are an increase in size, a change in color or shape, a change in surface texture, and the most dangerous change is development of bumps or an overall thickness increase in a mole or other skin growth. Another warning sign is a new mole or growth that appears out of the blue. It wasn't there a few weeks ago, and there it is, and it seems to be growing. That's especially true if you don't have many moles, or if the new mole looks different from the ones you do have. What you don't want to do is wait for the non-visual changes, like bleeding, itching, or ulceration, because by then you may be compromising your survival chances. There are two types of melanoma, radial and nodular. Radial melanomas grow in diameter at first. They are usually easy to detect because they often look unusual or ugly. About 80% of adult melanomas are radial. Nodular melanomas are the most lethal type and grow primarily downward like icebergs. They often look innocent and for that reason are more difficult to recognize than radial melanomas. They are more prevalent in young people than in adults, and they account for disproportionately more melanoma fatalities in all age groups. These are 4 photos of radial melanomas. Their growth is two-dimensional at first, and they almost always have 2 or more ABCD properties. A is asymmetry. If you draw a line through the center of any of these moles, one half is not a mirror image reflection of the other half. B is for border. The borders of melanomas with the surrounding skin are often uneven or notched. C is color. Melanomas often have multiple colors or shades. And D is diameter, which is often more than 1/4 of an inch in radial melanomas. All melanomas eventually enter a vertical growth phase. Most of the growth is beneath the surface where you can't see it, but some is above the surface in the form of bumps or overall elevation. Vertical growth signals the most dangerous phase of melanoma development. The photos show 3 different phases of vertical growth. The melanoma on the left has just started vertical growth. You can see small black bumps near the top and bottom. That melanoma is probably curable. The one in the middle shows intermediate vertical growth in the form of a distinct brown nodule. Time will tell whether it is curable. The one on the right is an example of advanced vertical growth and was fatal. The time for vertical growth to begin varies with the type of melanoma. For radial melanomas, it is generally 6 to 12 months after it first becomes visible on the skin. For nodular melanomas, it may be much less. Radial melanomas start in the epidermis, the thin top layer of skin. At that stage, they're called in situ melanomas, and they're 100% curable in just a short office visit. When they reach the border between the epidermis and the underlying dermis layer at about 1 millimeter depth, they become invasive, but they're still 90% curable. As it continues to grow downward, it becomes less curable. At 2 millimeters, the prognosis is uncertain. When it reaches a depth of 4 millimeters, the chance of survival is less than 50%, and when it penetrates into the subcutaneous layers of fat and muscle, the chances of survival are slim. There are 2 reasons. First, as the tumor grows, it begins to release cancerous cells, and the deeper it is, the more likely that there will be nearby blood vessels and lymph vessels that can pick up some of the cancerous cells and carry them to other parts of the body, like the lungs, liver, bones, or brain. These photos show 4 nodular melanomas, the most dangerous type. The first 2 photos on the left are early stage and likely curable. The third image is a 2 millimeter thick oval-shaped flesh-colored melanoma on an earlobe. Time will tell if it is curable. The fourth image is a nodular melanoma on the ankle of a 12-year-old boy and was fatal. Nodular melanomas usually show no ABCD signs, often start in clear skin, and may look innocent. They can reach the point of no return in as little as 3 months after they first become visible on the skin. But they always exhibit all 3 EFG warning signs. E is elevated. There must be growth above the skin surface. F is firm. They are firm to the touch, not flabby. If a growth is flabby, it's probably just a harmless skin tag. G means it must be growing more than 2 weeks. Many growths, like zits, will appear on the skin, grow for a week or 2, and then start to shrink or disappear. But melanomas are aggressive cancers. Once they start growing, they don't stop. This simulation shows the development of a nodular melanoma in clear skin. Melanoma is unusual among the skin cancers because it's more likely to develop in intermittently sun-exposed areas than in chronically exposed areas. In white males, the most common location of melanoma is the back. In white females, it's the legs, especially the backs of the lower legs. In darker skin populations, the most common locations are the feet and hands. That variety of melanoma is not related to sun exposure, and it can also occur in white individuals. If you spend 10 minutes just once a month checking your skin for warning signs, you can drastically reduce your chance of dying from melanoma. You need a large wall mirror in a well-lighted room, a hand mirror with a long handle, a hairbrush or dryer for parting your hair, and a flashlight. It's important to be thorough. Melanoma can occur anywhere, including places where the sun doesn't shine. If you have a difficult time checking your back and scalp, get a family member or friend to help. And once a month is enough. That's free insurance that could easily save your life. People who do this almost never die from melanoma. Now a short quiz to see if you can identify melanoma. 3 of these images are melanomas, the other 3 are benign growths. In the next several seconds, write the numbers of the 3 that you think are melanoma. The red arrows show the melanomas. Surprised? Don't feel badly. This was a trick question. Because I didn't provide some crucial information you would have needed to identify the melanomas correctly. The missing information was what these growths looked like a month or 2 earlier. Appearance alone is often not enough to identify possible melanomas. You also need to know the history, and the only way to get it is to check your skin regularly. Now that you know what melanoma is and how to recognize it, I'd like to discuss the role of ultraviolet radiation in causing melanoma. The sun releases a wide spectrum of radiation, and it can be categorized according to energy. On the low energy side of the spectrum is infrared radiation. When you feel the warmth of the sun, it's due to infrared, and that doesn't harm you. When you see the colors around you, it's due to visible radiation, and obviously that doesn't harm you either. But as you move toward the higher energy end of the spectrum, the next kind of radiation is ultraviolet radiation, and that can harm you. And if you go even further, you have X radiation. Luckily, X radiation and the highest part of ultraviolet radiation is absorbed by the atmosphere and never reaches the surface of the Earth. There are 2 kinds of ultraviolet radiation that reach the surface of the Earth, and both of them increase your risk of melanoma and other skin cancers. The first is ultraviolet B, or UVB, and it burns the skin. When you buy a sunscreen, the SPF rating refers to how well it protects your skin from UVB if the sunscreen is properly applied. That's a big if, by the way. UVA doesn't burn your skin, but it penetrates more deeply into it, and it can cause DNA changes within the genes of the cells of your skin. You get primarily UVB radiation from the sun and primarily UVA radiation from tanning lamps, but both sources emit both kinds of radiation. Using tanning beds greatly increases your risk of melanoma. UVA exposure from tanning bed lamps is more than 10 times greater than from the sun, and UVB intensity is the same as from the sun. If you're under 35, every tanning bed session increases your risk by 22%. And if you're under 30 and use tanning beds 10 times or more in 12 months, your risk increases by a factor of 8. The only safe way to tan is to use a sunless bronzer. The active dye in sunless bronzers is only absorbed by dead skin cells. You can't harm or kill cells that are already dead. The options to get a sunless tan are to use an over-the-counter product, a spray booth, or have the bronzer custom airbrushed. The dread orange color only happens if you use a bronzer that's too dark for your skin. To avoid it, use a product that's just a little darker than your normal skin color and build up the tan with a few applications rather than trying to do it all at once with a darker product. Sunless.com has detailed information on choosing the right product for your skin. These photos show a person with very light sun-sensitive skin before and after sunless tanning. There are several ways to protect against sun exposure. Unless you're at high risk, you don't need to be fanatic about it. Let's start with sunscreen. Choose a broad-spectrum product with an SPF of 30 or more and apply it heavily. If you're confused about ingredients, look for a sunscreen with zinc oxide, which is an excellent broad-spectrum protectant. The most exposed areas are the nose, upper cheeks, lips, and tops of ears. Rather than using a liquid sunscreen on those areas, we recommend a sunblock stick that won't run or get into your mouth and eyes like liquids may. Protective clothing includes a hat with a wide brim to protect your ears and neck, sunglasses labeled 100% UV protection, and sun protective swimwear. Whenever possible, minimize your exposure during 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and don't forget to protect against reflected ultraviolet from water, sand, snow, and other light surfaces. Finally, keep in mind that UV radiation penetrates water to a much greater extent than visible light does, so clouds aren't protective unless there's a heavy overcast, and also cold temperatures don't protect against UV exposure. Sunscreen is the most popular sun protection option, but the SPF rating is much less important than how heavily it is applied. Unfortunately, hardly anyone applies the right amount. Most users apply only 25 to 50% of the amount needed to get the rated SPF. If you apply 25% of the required amount of an SPF 100 sunscreen, the real protection you're getting is only SPF 3. Now pretend you're in a swimsuit at a beach or pool. I'd like you to hold out your hand and cup it as deeply as you can. Go ahead and do it. That flashing red light in the upper right means I'm watching you through your webcam. Now pretend you're filling your hand with sunscreen until it's just ready to overflow. That's the amount of sunscreen needed to get the rated SPF. And you need to reapply it every 2 hours, after towel drying, after swimming, and whenever you're perspiring heavily. And that means the average adult spending a day at the beach or pool should use a full 6-ounce container of sunscreen. Do you use that amount or know anyone who does? Unfortunately, most of us are deceiving ourselves into thinking we're getting much more protection than we really are. Humans and all other warm-blooded mammals have an ingredient in their skin called dehydrocholesterol. When exposed to UVB radiation from the sun, it is converted into vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 in supplements is made by extracting dehydrocholesterol from sheepskin and exposing it to sunlight. It's exactly the same vitamin D3 that's produced in human skin. In the liver, vitamin D3 is converted into hydroxyvitamin D3, and that is converted in the kidneys to dihydroxyvitamin D3, which is the biologically active ingredient. The bottom line is that supplements are a much safer and more dependable way of getting vitamin D3 than sun exposure. Most teens are not effectively educated about skin cancer. Most think that skin cancer is not a big deal, that it only happens to older folks, and that tanning beds are a safe way to get a tan. In 1999, a survey of more than 10,000 children of nurses in all 50 states showed that 2/3 of them never used sunscreen and that 80% of them had at least one bad sunburn during the summer. A 2012 Sloan Kettering study of Massachusetts students showed a 50% decrease in sunscreen use among middle school students compared with elementary school students. And a Centers of Disease Control and Prevention study published in 2013 showed that 44% of age 18 white female students used indoor UV tanning in the past year, and 30% used it more than 10 times during the year. Why has a disease as common and deadly as melanoma fallen so badly through the cracks of the public health education system? Well, the first thing to realize is there is no formal public health education system. There's only an informal variety of sources through which we all receive health information. The first source is our parents, then primary care doctors, schools, TV and news media, nonprofits like the American Cancer Society, and government agencies like the National Cancer Institute. With most serious but preventable diseases, if one of the sources is weak or missing, there's enough information from the others to compensate. For example, if we as parents fail to educate our children about the dangers of smoking and lung cancer, they're likely to learn about it in school, from their primary care doctors, or from the TV and newspapers. But with melanoma, all of these sources are usually weak or missing. Most parents don't educate their children about melanoma either because they're not well educated themselves or because it was much less prevalent when they were children. Most schools don't teach their students about it, and those that do often don't teach it effectively, focusing too much on sun protection and not enough on what melanoma is all about. Most primary care doctors receive little or no dermatology training in medical school, and only a small percentage conduct complete skin exams during routine physicals. Newspapers and TVs sometimes provide information about skin cancer in the late spring or early summer, but it's not the year-round coverage that other diseases like heart disease and breast cancer receive. And finally, large nonprofits and government agencies often have good online and printed skin cancer resources, but they usually don't conduct active outreach. You have to go to them, they don't come to you. And most people have better things to do with their time than surfing the web for information about diseases they might get. There are two primary focus options for educating teens about melanoma. The most common but least effective is sun safety. The better focal point is melanoma. Many studies have shown that sun safety, when used as the primary emphasis for skin cancer education, does not lead to behavior changes. It also can't prevent the 30% of melanomas that are not caused by ultraviolet exposure. By focusing on melanoma, students learn what it is all about and that it is deadly and can happen to them as teens. With that knowledge, they're more likely to take ultraviolet protection seriously. Two student videos are the centerpieces of the classroom lessons. The first is a middle school video, Should've, Could've, Would've, that is 23 minutes long and features 3 young melanoma survivors talking about their experiences. The other video, My Melanoma Vlog, is for high school students and is 16 minutes long. It's about a high school student who attends a health fair skin cancer exhibit, then searches for more information online and shares what she has learned through the medium of video logging or vlogging. The videos are very different, so a middle school student receiving the lesson will not see a similar video in high school. Both videos received Gold Triangle Awards from the American Academy of Dermatology, and you can watch 3-minute previews of the videos at melanomaeducation.net. The student lesson is done in a single class session. Start the session by asking, how many of you have ever had a bad sunburn? How many use tanning beds? And how many have family members who had skin cancer? Then show the student video, and after the video, follow up by asking if the video changed their notions about skin cancer. Next, there's an online document called C-Spot to show and go over briefly with the students and provide them with the web address for them to view it or download it at home. End the session by assigning them to teach their families about melanoma using the C-Spot document, and then have them print out the parental signature sheet attached to the C-Spot document and get a parent's signature and return the sheet to you. This is the C-Spot document. It's much more readable when you access it online as a separate file. You can get all of the needed lesson resources and additional resources by logging in or registering at melanomaeducation.net. By following the online instructions, you can access the student videos and other resources, including the unnarrated slides from this presentation, the latest lesson plan, detailed instructions for doing a self-skin exam, what to do if you find something suspicious during the exam, and a page on the dangers of tanning beds.
And as Dr. Fine cues up that next video, I want to again remind folks that please type any questions that you might have into the chat box, and we'll address those questions. And also note that there has been that link that Dr. Fine referenced in his video has been posted into the chat box, so you can access that easily.
So I believe now we'll be switching over to watch one of the student videos, correct?
Yes. Okay, so this one is the high school student video. It's called My Melanoma Vlog.
Hey everybody, I'm sorry I haven't posted a video in a while. My parents dragged me on a family vacation, and I wasn't allowed to take my computer, because it would take away from family bonding time. What I really wanted to talk about today was the health fair I went to the other day, and I know what you're thinking. Boring. But I got out of class to film it, which was awesome. It was just a bunch of tables in the gym. But I was particularly drawn to the skin cancer table. They had this box, this UV ray box. And you draw aside these curtains and you stick your head all the way in and you get up close to this mirror. The mirror shows you all of the skin damage that you've acquired over your entire lifetime.
You kind of look, it's like really dark freckles, but then you see all these blotches around your face. And it just looks kind of like kind of a rash.
That's gross.
Freckles like literally everywhere. It's like all over my face.
The sun gives off all kinds of radiation. There's the light that you can see, Roy G. Biv, all that stuff. And then there's the light that you can't see, like infrared or ultraviolet, which is what we're talking about. Now, there are two kinds of ultraviolet light that we're going to be talking about, UVA and UVB. UVB is the kind of radiation that gives you a sunburn. UVA is the radiation that goes underneath the top layer of your skin and goes down to the lowest part and hits those cells. That's where skin cancer can be formed. But I'm probably too young to get skin cancer, so I'm not going to worry about it. I have to work on an essay for my AP English teacher. So she's been assigning me hours of homework every single night, so thank you, Miss Malcolm, if you're watching. So I'm gonna go work on that. I'll see you guys later. Alright, hello again. Some of your responses to my last video were really surprising. I was thinking about your stories and I got out of the shower and I've got this spot on my arm, and I mean, I've seen it before, but I never really thought about it. So of course, instead of writing my paper that's due in just a few hours, I've been watching videos about melanoma online. Here's one that I found.
Tanning is skin cells in trauma, trying to protect themselves from cancer. But one damaged cell can start a melanoma growing, and just 1 millimeter deep, it can get into your bloodstream and spread. So even if a melanoma is cut out, the cancer can reappear months or years later, often in your lung, liver, or brain. And you haven't even started to burn yet. There's nothing healthy about a tan. Authorized by the New South Wales Government.
That is really scary. Also a little gross. I've been watching a lot of stuff tonight, and I want to show you this other clip.
And then suddenly my world came crashing down. I was told I had cancer, and that was when I was 22, and you know, I went ahead with my life. I traveled the world, and here I am, 25, and I've been told that I've got only a few weeks to live, and I don't think any solariums looking good, having a golden tan is worth that. I much rather be pale and, you know, have my life. In 1 week and a bit, it's my 26th birthday, and I sit here and I don't even know whether I'm gonna make that.
Okay, it's 3 a.m. and I just read about a few people. The first one here is Stacy. She didn't find her melanoma early enough, so instead of just a really easy mole removal, they had to take a big chunk out of her back to make sure they got any cancer that was spreading. This is Amanda. She also found her melanoma too late, and it ended up spreading all over her body and killing her. And this last one is Daniel. Again, didn't find his melanoma in time. He was young and healthy, and it killed him. It's 4 a.m. and I have finally finished my paper. And I am done thinking for the night. Done thinking about Macbeth, melanoma, any other M words that are just terribly annoying at this hour. Okay, I'm gonna ask my mom to make me a dermatologist appointment in the morning, and I will see you all later, so good night. Hey guys, so I went to the dermatologist yesterday and everything's fine. She said that the mole on my shoulder was okay, but I needed to perform monthly skin checks to make sure that I didn't have any new or changing moles or other growths. So what I've decided to do is show you guys how to perform skin checks on yourself so that none of you freak out like I did. And I've gotten my friend Brandon to help me out with this. Okay, all right. Hello, everybody. We are in my bathroom. This is Brandon, who I said was going to help me out. Yep. So, Brandon's going to perform a skin check on himself.
Skin check.
And I have this tiny little camera. You can see. I'm going to put this on his head so that you all can see. Okay, yeah, point it down. Anyway, okay, so camera. All right, I think we're ready.
Sure.
We'll shut the door, and I will go get the check sheet.
Okay.
And here's how you do a skin check.
Skin check.
So first, you're gonna check your face.
Checking the face.
Including your lips, ears, and eyes.
What am I looking for, though?
There are two types of melanoma. There's radial and there's nodular. Radial melanoma usually starts from a mole that spreads out on the surface of your skin. Now when it's thin, it's curable. but then it starts to grow down into your skin. That's when it can become fatal. There are 4 things that you have to look out for. A, for asymmetry. So your mole is a perfect circle, and then it starts to kind of shift on one side. That's asymmetry. B, for borders. For instance, look to see if the border of your mole starts smooth, but then changes to become jagged or irregular. C, for colors. Like changing from a lighter brown to a darker shade of brown, or black, or another color. And D, for diameter. Check to see if the diameters of your moles are getting bigger than a pencil eraser. Next, you want to use a flashlight to oh, I didn't give you the flashlight, did I?
Way to go, Kieran.
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
She's forgetful.
Okay.
But, you know.
And I'm going to go ahead, you're going to use a hand mirror later.
Okay.
So here's the flashlight and the hand mirror.
Check your face! You can really get melanoma in your mouth?
Yes, you can.
Even though the sun doesn't hit it?
Right, because the sun isn't the only thing that can cause melanoma.
Oh.
You could already have it. Okay, so the next thing you have to look for are the bumps, in addition to the moles. Nodular melanoma starts with a bump on like a clear patch of skin like this. Nothing on here, pretty smooth. You can see the start of a bump, and this little bump can become fatal just 3 months after it first becomes visible on your skin. Think of it like an iceberg. You've got this little bit that you can see, and then all of this stuff that you can't see, and it's the stuff that you can't see that's dangerous. Nodular melanoma is tricky because it can look innocent. It's not like a mole at all. Don't freak out by confusing a skin tag or wart or zit with melanoma. If it's nodular melanoma, it has to be elevated, firm, and growing for more than 2 weeks. The next thing you're going to have to do is check your scalp. Scalps. Longer hair, you would want to use a dryer or a brush. This is mostly for the viewers. Or you can get a family member or a friend to help you out. Next, you want to check your abdomen, and you're going to check the front and the sides. Now, use the hand mirror again and check your mid and lower back very carefully, because the back is the most common site of melanomas in white males.
You got my back?
Yeah, I got your back.
Well, that's not fair.
Well, no, it's okay because the legs are the most common sites in females.
Oh.
So we have our own most common site.
I see.
The next one we can't do on film, but I'm just going to read it out. It's
Wait.
a little awkward.
A little awkward?
Yeah, use the hand mirror to check all areas of buttocks and genitals.
Buttocks.
And I won't read what that includes because it includes everything, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Okay, so next.
Arms.
Last step is your legs and your feet.
Toes. Get your toes. I think I am okay.
Okay, well that is a thorough skin check minus the stuff that we can't film.
You're welcome, Kieran.
Thank you. You didn't give me a chance to say thank you. If you've already had at least one really painful, blistering sunburn, your chance of getting melanoma is doubled. Now, we're going to talk about ways in which you can protect yourself. Actually, a lot of people, at my school at least, know how to protect themselves from the sun.
I am conscious of it. I mean, I've become more and more conscious of it over the years and stuff like that, and I do try and make sure I wear sunscreen more and more often.
I found this, like, moisturizing sunblock for my face. That was pretty cool.
You should wear at least SPF 45, and it should say that it protects against UVA and UVB, because you want to make sure you get both so that you don't get a sunburn and you don't get skin cancer, which is just the best deal.
I always wear SPF 45. So Irish, I burn a lot.
A few people said they wore protective clothing, which is good. You can get t-shirts that are specifically UV protective. One other person said that they tried to stay out of the sun at 10 in the morning to 3-ish in the afternoon. And, of course, 100% UV protection sunglasses. A lot of people at my school have certain characteristics that put them at a greater risk for melanoma. Some of those things were 50 or more moles, irregular or large moles, freckles, light skin, blonde hair, red hair, skin that burns easily, or family history of skin cancer.
Bad because my grandmother got skin cancer.
But there is one thing you can do if you really want to increase your chance of getting melanoma. Tanning. If you go to a tanning bed 10 or more times per year, you are 8 times more likely to get melanoma. I know that some of you would still really like a tan, and 2 ways to do that is by using self-tanner or spray tanning. I know what a lot of you just thought, particularly girls. A lot of you went, self-tanning? Oh no, that always ends up badly. Everyone turns orange when they use self-tanner. It's all about what color you choose. When picking a color for self-tanning, you have to keep in mind your current skin tone. Me, I'm very pale. I personally have chosen a moisturizer, a daily moisturizer for fair skin tones. That's all I really have to talk about. Thank you for tuning in. My next video should be in the next couple of days, so look out for that one, and I will see you guys late. Alright, I'm gonna hit the stop button with my nose, and I will see you guys later.
Okay, if we have time, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So there were not any questions in the chat box, but again, reminding folks to type those questions into the chat box or raise your hand and we'll address those questions. Dr. Fine, thank you for that information. I think I just have one question. I think, first of all, thank you for sharing this information. Very powerful information to know about. Oftentimes skin cancer is thought about something that's not very serious, but it's really important to see that is something that we need to be paying attention to. I think one thing that schools, our health teachers and school nurses and other folks who might be joining us oftentimes struggle with is, we know that there's a lot of information that we need to present in our schools, and it's really great. And for those folks who have the advantage of a comprehensive K-12 health education program, have those opportunities, but a lot of schools don't have those opportunities. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit about ways that we can integrate information in education about melanoma or other skin cancers into other classroom activities or other ways that we can engage with our students when we don't maybe have a comprehensive health education classroom that we can
Okay, that's a great question. If we look at the schools that are using our program, I would say the majority of schools, it's being taught by physical education teachers. Physical education teachers or physical education programs in many schools include a small health component. And so it's some schools are using physical education as a way to introduce the subject. We also have schools that are using family and consumer science teachers anatomy and physiology teachers, sometimes school nurses, even if it's not their main job to speak with classes, will come in as a guest in another class, for instance, biology or science or even physical education, and present the lesson.
Great, thank you for that. What other questions do we have from the audience?
I know someone did mention that a lot of the examples used were of those with light skin, and they were wondering if you had more examples of those with different skin complexions.
Yeah, okay, so in the student video itself, there is an Asian woman who died of melanoma, and you learned some of her story. In the teacher video, there is Bob Marley and Dr. Maturi, who are both African Americans, both died of melanoma. But I would say if you would like to include people with darker skin in your presentation, to take some of the slides from the presentation and just choose the ones that you want and add them. One of the reasons why you see mostly lighter skinned individuals is that their chance of getting melanoma is much higher than in darker skinned populations. And to make a video and tell dark skinned populations that the sky is falling, you need to do this, would not really be accurate. But there is information, and you can get them from the slides or from the high school video.
Great, thank you.
So I'm not seeing any other questions, though we do have some comments in the chat box here with just appreciation again, Dr. Fine, for sharing this information and reminding us of the importance of doing those self-checks and sharing that information with our young students. So I think as we wrap up today.
I just want to interrupt really quick before we wrap up. There is a question. Someone's spearheading a wellness day for 5th to 6th grade students, and do you offer teaching tools or activities to present to this audience?
I do see that.
The middle school video, should have, could have, would have, would be suitable for 6th grade students. We have many schools using it for that purpose. 5th grade is a little bit marginal. We would ask you to watch the video first and then decide whether you think it's suitable for 5th graders. But we do have a lot of 6th grade students who are being taught using the middle school video.
Great, thank you for that information. So as a reminder, today's presentation was approved for Category 1 Continuing Education credit for health educators. It is also approved for continuing nursing education, 1 credit each. If you're in a position where you don't need either the Certified Health Education Specialist credential or continuing nursing education, we do have available a certificate of participation that you can request. That continuing education is free for ASHA members. If you are not a member, they are available for purchase. That 1 hour is $20 for the CHES or CNE, or $10 for a certificate of participation. In order to receive that, you would have to complete the evaluation. That evaluation will be available here. It just appeared in the chat box. So click on that link to complete the evaluation. And that'll also be available to you after the conclusion of today's webinar. So you can request those certificates in continuing education through that link that's available. Want to remind everyone or let you know about maybe our upcoming webinars. Today's webinar is part of our ongoing effort to provide continuing education for the school health professionals. We have another webinar coming up on April 4th called Catch My Breath, Youth E-Cigarettes and Jewel Prevention Program. So we're excited about that one. And then at the end of next month, a special session on information about publishing in the Journal of School Health. You might remember our premier publication, the Journal of School Health, learning information about how you can get information about your school health program published in that journal to share with everyone nationwide. So again, thank you for joining us today. Please do take time to complete that evaluation, and a reminder as well about our upcoming conference, October 2 through 4 in Cincinnati, and hope you have opportunity to join us for that. To learn more about any of these opportunities, visit our website at ashaweb.org. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter, LinkedIn. We're constantly promoting information on those platforms. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you have a great rest of your day and a wonderful weekend.